Hi, I'm Dr. Holly, and in this video, we're going to be going over the brain dissection project. This project has two parts. The first part is a video of you recording the area you have prepared for the brain dissection. You want to make sure that your lighting is decent so that I can see the brain structures. You want to make sure you have a nice flat surface. Your brain dissection equipment has arrived in the mail. You've got gloves. Everything that you need is set. In the second part of the project, due in Module 7, is where you will actually conduct the project, where you will identify 15 unique structures, identifying where they are, and the function of the brain structure. So, two parts. In the first part, you want to make sure you have a flat surface. You want to make sure you've got your gloves, and your sheep brains have actually arrived. Most of the time they're going to arrive in like a vacuum sealed bag like this. Sometimes they arrive in a jar like this. Occasionally they come in a large gallon pail. That's fine. If it comes with this, that's fine. Also, just make sure when you open it, you do so over the sink so you don't have any spills. I will also say my students typically ask me once their brain arrived, is this right? It looks really small. Yes, it does look really small. The sheep brain is very small, and we talk about what that means in earlier chapters in the textbook for this class. But yes, the sheep brain is small, and that's okay. So if you're concerned that the company sent you the wrong one, they didn't. It's just small. In your equipment or in your dissection kit, you want to make sure for your equipment that you've got your scissors. These are sharp, so you want to be careful. Your scalpel, which will probably come in two parts. The first part will look like this, and the second part will be the blade in a wrapped package. When you go to open this, be very careful because it is sharp. You will open the blade, and you will see you can like click it right on, right here, just clip it right on there. And so it will look like this. So this is the blade you'll be using to section your tissue. And lastly, in your kit, you want to make sure you either have forceps or a probe. And the real purpose of that is when you go to do your dissection, your actual dissection, you'll want the sharp end of the probe or the forceps to point to a brain structure. So you can say, yes, right here is the optic chiasm. This is where the optic nerve enters the brain and where nasal information is ductisates contralaterally. So you want to be able to point so you can identify the structure where it is and state the function. Okay, all of that happens in the first video. There will also be opportunity in that video for you to submit questions that you might have about your area, making sure that you haven't forgotten anything, if you're seeing well, if your lighting is okay. Any questions that you might have, you can include those in that first video. In the second video is where you will actually have that dissection where you will section the tissue, and you have three choices. You can section horizontally, sagittally, and coronally, and look at the different brain structures to state the 15 unique ones and their function. Something interesting, so just for example, if you section the tissue coronally, anterior to posterior, notice how structures change. If you're in the anterior portion, you can see how the corpus callosum looks smaller, but then as you move posterior, it changes. The same thing applies for the lateral ventricles. When you're looking at it in a coronal section, it changes. A coronal section versus a sagittal section, moving from dorsal to ventral, that same structure changes. So make sure you're noticing that and pointing it out in your videos. So brain dissection project has two parts. The first one is a shorter video where you're making sure your area is ready to go. And in the second video, you are actually identifying the structures and their functions.